Hey everybody, how's it going? So with this news of Sony and Disney having their feud and Spider-Man no longer being in the MCU, I thought it'd be a good time to talk about what Spider-Man 3 and 4 could be like, since they confirmed they're still making that with Tom Holland presumably playing the role and also John Watts returning to direct, what those movies could look like without their MCU connections. Because a lot of Homecoming, of course, with Iron Man, and a lot Far From Home dealing with the Iron Man death, fallout, and also Mysterio, but Nick Fury as well being in there, Skrulls being in there. At the end of the film, we learned, it's a lot of craziness, basically. It's a lot of crazy connections to the MCU that potentially will have to be cut off. So luckily, a lot of the main students from Midtown, the main characters of the film, basically like Flash, Ned, Michelle, or MJ, if you want to call her that, they can probably come back, but likely we'll get a lot of new characters. And likely a good thing that Sony can take advantage of is the fact that each film has been outside of New York. So you could do the trip thing again, or you can keep him in New York. Likely, based on the previous Sony Spider-Man movies, they'll want to keep the character in New York, but I wouldn't be surprised if they want to go a route of mimicking what Marvel's done in the past creatively, and instead they maybe do another trip somewhere else to further give an excuse for why maybe Spider-Man would be more separated from certain characters, while at the same time still being able to tell a Spider-Man story. So my theory is, since they've already done Europe, it would be really cool if they do Africa maybe, and they could do Kraven the Hunter, which would be a really cool kind of story and trip. And of course you could do something where maybe Kraven behind the scenes is manipulating everything, so Peter will kind of be on his own, so he can have his, great hunt, so to speak, undisturbed. You can definitely play that up if you want to, and that would give time for Sony to make at least maybe one film without Marvel's involvement, and then you can kind of bring everything back into the fold for Spider-Man 4, ideally with maybe Sony and Marvel making a creative deal. So Marvel and Kevin Feige could produce Spider-Man 4, but Spider-Man 3 is kind of like that oddball that, may not work. Hopefully it does work though, because it'd be a shame to see Tom Holland a product of this feud, because it's really unfortunate for Tom Holland. He's kind of in between these franchises. He can't just flat out leave Sony, because Sony's also producing a lot of other movies he's involved with. And of course, him just staying in there sucks too, because if Spider-Man 3 bombs, that's a huge stain on his career, which for the most part has mostly been Spider-Man. So, it puts him between a rock and a hard place, basically. But with Spider-Man 3, they could definitely do an African excursion type of movie with Tom Holland's character of Spider-Man really separated from the outside world, separated from other supporting characters, so you can maybe tease unofficially that he maybe got calls from Happy Hogan, from Nick Fury, characters like that. You could say Aunt May's boyfriend, if you will, instead of Happy. There's ways to go around it, but I definitely think doing the African route for Spider-Man 3 would be a great way to really get the character out of the limelight, a way to explain him being separated from characters and adapt characters like Kraven, which Sony's put a lot of effort into in recent years. Now for Spider-Man 4, I really wouldn't be surprised if we do Sinister Six sooner rather than later. In this case, beforehand, maybe Marvel was kind of pushing on the Sinister Six stuff. It doesn't seem like a total coincidence that the characters we've received in the past, like Michael Keaton's Vulture and Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, and also Shocker in between other characters, doesn't seem too much of a coincidence. It seems very intentional that all those characters are Sinister Six characters, and Sony was very into adapting a Sinister Six movie, so I would not be surprised if that comes back on the table as they try really fleshing out their Sony-verse of characters. And also at the same time, you shouldn't be too surprised if you hear Tom Holland's Spider-Man appear in some capacity in Venom 2 and or Venom 3, because the excuse they'll likely use is that obviously Tom Holland's Spider-Man's been traveling around the world and stuff like that, but he's on the East Coast, Venom is on the West Coast, so you could easily do something where either character goes to a different coast and from there they meet and shenanigans involved, and there you have your Sony Spider-Man Venom crossover film. Would not be surprised. These definitely are things you should consider now at this point if Sony and Marvel do not come back together and work on a new creative deal for Kevin Feige to produce, and also, I guess, the box office proceedings. If that doesn't get worked out, don't be surprised if this is what we see in Spider-Man 3, 4, and potentially a Venom Sony Spider-Man crossover of some sorts, because these are all things Sony has done in the past, has been leaked in their emails they wanted to do, and Sony, if anything else, is very uncreative, so they regularly go back to the same things they've said from years and years ago they would like to do. But comment below, share thoughts, what do you guys think, and we'll see you guys later.